Well, happy Wednesday, everybody. It is a sunny Wednesday here in New York for a change, and I'm so happy to be here with my good friends, Jojo from Jers, Michelle Kinney, and Tara Setmayer for another episode of Over It. But this time, we decided to bring on a special guest for part of the show because, as you probably know, we had quite a little meeting in the Oval yesterday with Mark Carney, the new Prime Minister of Canada, and not the governor of Canada, but the prime minister. And our president, Donald Trump, who apparently doesn't think that this is a real estate deal he can't close. So we thought that we would bring on somebody who knows Canada because he's Canadian, but more importantly, somebody who represented Canada or his part of Canada in Parliament, former MP, Canadian MP Charlie Angus, who, if you guys have been watching the Midas Touch or other shows, you might have seen him around. So Charlie, so good to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me on this show. Is it? Do you call it a show, podcast? What do you call it?
We call it a show.
Okay, it's a show. I like a show. Good.
Yeah.
all the things.
Yeah.
So listen, just wanted to hear your initial reaction to the bonkers Oval Office meeting yesterday with your new prime minister and our sort of new but kind of really old president, who
mostly old,
despite being told over and over and over and over again that you guys want no part of us, and why should you? You've got free healthcare, you've got low-cost college, you are the nicest people in the Northern Hemisphere, and we're none of those things. For some reason, the president just can't take no for an answer and still wants you guys to become the 51st state. So your thoughts on how Carney handled it, your thoughts on generally what the hell is going on in our special relationship, and are we ever going to get this train back on track even after Trump is gone?
Well, okay, so I'm a guy, so I probably shouldn't have these kind of insights, but I live in a house of women who are much smarter than me, and they picked up right away. Donald Trump, he's a convicted felon and he's a sexual predator. So no means nothing to a sexual predator.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole language of, well, never say never, this kind of like it's a form of abuse in its own right. And it's not a real estate deal. It's a threat to an independent nation. That's not a real estate deal. That's an act of war. So and we begin with the gaslighting. This is a multi-billion-dollar trade arrangement that affects thousands and thousands of jobs on both sides of the border. So it's not just Canadian jobs that are on the line, but all manner of American jobs are already at risk right now. And he's like, well, gee, I don't know why he wants to come and meet with me. It's like the gaslighting, the never say never. And then, of course, when it comes to facing down Prime Minister Mark Carney, he was, acting polite, pretending it was okay. So I think what Canadians got from it is that this is more of the same. And we have to chart our own course. And I've been very impressed with Prime Minister Carney. He's been very clear that the relationship that we had, a relationship, that John F. Kennedy said could never be torn asunder, has been torn asunder by this convicted predator, abuser. And we're going to have to figure out how to get through this. So that opening meeting, I thought, was very instructive.
Let me ask you this before we move on just to others. I just had a question. Do you think that this is irreparable? Like, do you think that if, some sane person ever comes back to the Oval Office, do Canadians ever trust that the Americans are not going to do this to them again? Or is this relationship so frayed now that you basically just lost trust in the American people? Because if we can elect somebody like this, are we really somebody to be counted on? How do people in Canada feel about us?
That's a really good question, and we don't know where it goes from here. I mean, we've been neighbors for hundreds of years. People travel back and forth. People have relations on both sides of the border. When my hockey team's out, I normally cheer for Boston. I should probably say that in Canada. I might
You shouldn't say that for New Yorker either.
Yeah.
I know. Okay. But, so these are deep relationships. We have this integrated economy that tearing it apart is really not doable without massive harm. But Canadians right now, I've never seen anything like this. We're a nation of likable slackers. You know, we never reach for the big gold ring. We don't do the boasting. We let Americans do that. We just get by. And suddenly we're being told we don't have a right to a country. What you're seeing now at the grassroots is a determination that is really, really unprecedented. The absolute firmness of the boycott, the saying we're not going along. So it's going to take a lot, and it's not going to happen in the government of Trump or Vance, that's for sure. And it could get a lot worse. I've been hoping that there'll be some kind of, stability, but I don't think Canadians are expecting that. So we're actually, I think, really starting to shift and think in a way we've never had to think before.
Charlie, let me ask you, and thank you for joining us. Let me ask you about Trump's impact on this election and how you ended up with Mark Carney and what Canadians were saying about Donald Trump and Donald Trump officials.
Well, prior to January 6th, we had a situation where the Trudeau government were so unpopular that all his key ministers were finding reasons to retire, to spend time with family. They couldn't get candidates. And then Trump came in. Trudeau was replaced by Mark Carney. And Pierre Poilievre, who's very much Canada's MAGA maple, he follows the same playbook. He lost a 27-point lead in the polls. That is unprecedented. A party that was at death's door came back, is within just a few seats of a majority government. This is very much unprecedented. Carney, I'm not in Carney's party. My party, the New Democratic Party, were almost wiped out. We were wiped out because our party wasn't seeing the shift. I saw it. I kept saying, guys, once Trump comes in, everything that happened in 2023, 2024 means nothing. We're in Trump land now. So he had a huge effect. And just at the very end, he couldn't keep his mouth shut. He had to step in again. I think Trump loomed over the election just like he loomed over the election in Australia. And it certainly hurt the MAGA Maple movement. But I think what we're going to see from them, there's going to be other ways that they're trying to undermine Canada and play to the MAGA movement. But right now, that election is going to go. It's going to be read. The tea leaves will be read in the Canadian history books for a long, 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 long time.
I think that's important for American viewers to understand the dynamics of politics in Canada right now. I think a lot of people just took it for granted. You're our friendly neighbors to the north. We all love the Canadians. You guys have brought us wonderful things. And yet we see that there is actually, I had never heard the term MAGA Maple until recently. I didn't realize that was a thing. And I think for those of us here in the US, it would be instructive for you to explain some of the parallels in what's going on in Canada compared to what's happening here, like particularly with what's happened to your party, the New Democratic Party, and how you said, because I see your New Democratic Party similar to the progressive wing of the Democrats here in the US, and that you were starting to see that there needed to be a shift, that they were getting away from being the voice of the people, which is what fueled the party for so long, and how some folks missed the boat a little bit with the emergence of the MAGA Maples and how you got here. I think a little bit of that context and history in parallel to the US would be helpful.
Well, certainly what we've seen, of course, is the rise of disinformation that has totally toxified politics. I mean, I was 21 years in Parliament representing a constituency bigger than the United Kingdom, very working class, very Indigenous. I never had a death threat. People know my home phone number is online. As of 2020, 2021, we stopped counting the death threats, the intimidation, the targeting of women politicians, pushing them out of office because of the ongoing harassment. That is the movement of the far right. Alex Jones gave a big endorsement to Pierre Poilievre. I called Poilievre as our MAGA Maple leader. I called him out in the House and like, Alex Jones, are you serious? I mean, my family were doxxed within 5 minutes. My kids' pictures online. So there's that same kind of intimidation that I think is really pushing people out of political life. Polyev used a lot of the same MAGA stuff. He was going to go after the woke universities and defund them. He wanted to. We have this really bizarre constitutional break glass, if necessary, hammer that a government can override constitutional rights that are given in the courts in certain specific circumstances. It was never used, but Polyev has said, well, hey, I am going to use that to override the courts, which is what we're seeing with Trump, and overriding the rights of people who've been kidnapped off the streets, facing deportation. So we were seeing that same language coming out of the MAGA Maple crowd. And I think they would have gotten elected if we hadn't actually seen November 5th happen. And that was the wake-up call. I've been doing a lot of speaking. I travel the country sort of trying to build a grassroots resistance and saying we were all sleepwalking towards disaster. Donald Trump, if he did anything, he woke us up.
Sounds
so now
familiar.
Exactly. You guys, unfortunately, you went first, so you
Yeah.
got it. We saw it, and it's woken people up, and you really see the sense of awareness now, the sense of what we need to do, and people talking about defending our values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are good things. Our country's based on that. Those aren't things to be hated. So it's really. For your loss has been maybe perhaps a gain for us that we know we have to defend these values.
And I've always felt like Canada didn't have this kind of strain of jingoism the United States had. You don't wear your little maple leaf pins everywhere you go the way that I think American politicians sometimes wave the American flag in very jingoistic ways. But it strikes me that you're now like taking Kentucky bourbon and just throwing it in the garbage. I mean, you're now taking American products understandably and basically saying as an act of resistance, you're not going to buy from us anymore. I mean, your number one trading partner, as you are ours. And
they're booing our anthem at hockey games. I mean, when would we ever expect that?
And that's
yeah.
the thing I just don't think Americans really are understanding yet. I don't think it's making its way into the minds and hearts of Americans quite yet, like how bad this is and how awful, just in general, embarrassing, the list goes on. I'll say first to preface, I grew up on the Canadian border, 15 miles from the St. Lawrence River. I grew up watching CTV and Mr. Dress Up and everything. So I always feel a little bit like I'm honorary Canadian, although I've lived in New York City for 20 years. My parents and everybody still lives up there. So upstate New York, northern New York, they're seeing the effects right now. They're feeling them. They're feeling them with trade, tourism, and immigration, quite frankly, with agriculture. But I'm wondering what you would say to Americans, maybe south of there, people who don't share a border, directly. What do you think that they should know about Canadians and what is going on that might make them understand or make a bigger impact, and why this is so important from your vantage point?
Well, what really happened, and again, we're not jingoistic, we came back from the Second World War. I mean, we fought, we lost so many people. And nobody ever talked about it. I mean, for America, it was like, the Best Generation, the Band of Brothers. We all grew up on American war stories.
You stormed the beaches at D-Day too, right?
We were on the beaches at D-Day, and we made the most ground. That was Juno Beach. And what we've been talking about in Canada, we talk about the Juno Beach gene. We come from a long line of Antifa. We were fighting fascists from the get-go. And once we start, and this is the way Canadians are, once we start a fight, we never stop until it's done. And I'm hearing a lot of those stories of people suddenly realizing, okay, that's what my uncles, that's what my grandfathers did. So to give you a sense of it, for Kentucky bourbon, the number one market for Kentucky spirits in the world is Canada. And you can't get it anywhere. And even if it was on the shelves, nobody would buy it. It's off the shelves. When you go into the grocery stores now, there is no American product, nothing. When
currently, right now,
if I've been checking it. All the corn came in the other day, and normally it's like Iowa corn, Illinois corn coming in. We're getting Mexican corn. We're getting fresh fruit and vegetables from Mexico and Peru. So all the grocery chains have turned around on a dime because the stuff was rotting in the stores. Like nobody, if it said product of USA, nobody would buy it. in March, which is the biggest month of the year for Canadians to go south, because March sucks in Canada. I personally like March. I hate April, but March, then that's deep cold.
Yeah.
70% drop in air flights.
Yeah.
They're moving, the planes are no longer going to Arizona and that. So these are millions and millions of dollars worth of jobs, or millions of investments. So for people who are in the red states in the South and that, Canadians are not going back to Florida. They're not going back to Arizona. They're not buying the products. And now we're buying stuff from Mexico that you would never see fresh fruit from Mexico on the shelf before, as far as I can tell. We've shifted our trade patterns and our buying patterns. And this is the really important thing. This didn't start with the leaders. This started with like moms and dads and going into stores and saying, no, you insulted my country. You threatened me. I'm not buying your product. So I go out and do a lot of talks on the boycott, and people are like, do not worry. The boycott will stay until this is done. So this is massive economic impact on key states right now.
Well, I mean, America.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that's interesting that it's a self-imposed boycott, because
Yeah.
the Canadians said, F you, you're not going to treat us like that. And I think, imagine if more Americans did that to Donald Trump and what MAGA is doing, we would be in a very different position right now. So kudos to the Canadians. See, you guys are tough up there. It's all that cold weather.
It's the cold weather. Once you mess with us, like, man, I don't know how many people I know have no front teeth, because that's how we learn to play sports, even the women.
I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, but if you had to get in Donald Trump's head, right? What are you, besides the very astute observation about the whole predatory nature of Donald Trump, what do you think, if you had to guess, this is really all about? This 51st state nonsense. Like, what was the impetus, the origin story? Do you think there's anything nefarious? There's lots of, people who have all sorts of theories about it, but what do you think it's really about at the end of the day?
Well, I think that he thought we were chumps. This guy he's impressed by Putin, and for a long time when Putin was threatening Ukraine, Ukrainians didn't believe that it was serious. I think Trump decided that he needed an easy pushover to get a victory, because he is an authoritarian, and he decided to pick on us. And we were like completely gobsmacked at first. Oh, come on, you're not serious. And then people were saying Trump being Trump. And then it became clear that Trump wasn't being Trump. And when Prime Minister Trudeau came back from one of the meetings, he said, this is not a game. This is dead serious. Everyone realized, okay, we are like Ukraine, and we've got Canada's deep connections to Ukraine. We have such a large Ukrainian-Canadian population, and we began to think of this as the front line of democracy has changed now. And so what's happening in the United States before was sort of like the crazy folks on the other side of the border partying all night, and we're like, can you guys keep it down? But hey, we don't want to bother you. But now it's like, no, you're on our side of the border. Whoa, that ain't going to happen. But I will say one thing that's really fascinating, in the work I'm doing of trying to build this grassroots, the amount of people across the U.S. who are contacting me, who are saying, we're starting it here and we're starting it in our community. And I think what's really important when we deal with tyranny, it's easier to stand up to it when it's just getting started than when it's established. And to do that, I think these cross-border contacts and the sense that we actually share values of democracy and decency and humanity, and we can't let the Pete Navarros and the J.D. Vances and the Trump dominate and make us hate each other. So that's going to be a really important thing going forward, is finding ways to support each other in resisting what is a very, very frightening attack on the rule of law and democracy and the international rule of law.
Well, I think you guys are kind of showing us the way, because interestingly, when Liberation Day, April 2nd, when he decided to impose tariffs on the world, and it's
so embarrassing.
Again, to people who are watching, on everybody but Russia, Cuba, North Korea, and Belarus. Okay. But he's imposing it on Canadians and on Mexicans with whom we already had a free trade agreement. So outside of that free trade agreement, he's imposing all sorts of tariffs. What I think you did, which nobody else did, is that you instituted reciprocal tariffs. I mean, you didn't wait. I don't know what the Europeans are sitting there worried about. I mean, the EU, they got together, their economies, about the size of ours. So you with a much smaller economy did not wait. And you basically said, if you're going to do this to us, we're going to fight back. And you did. And I think, I was watching that press conference yesterday. And I was kind of thinking, here comes Trump talking tough. By the time Carney was done with him, they asked him what he wanted out of Carney or out of Canada. He said, I want their French. I mean, it was like,
yeah, it was bonkers. Can we watch that clip, actually, the one about the 51st? I think it's, if anyone hasn't seen it, it's important that we all see it.
Mr. Prime Minister, I'd like to get your response to this too. Mr. President, you have said that Canada should
a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things.
That, which is,
I
mean, I can't.
But it would be a massive tax cut. And it's also a beautiful, as a real estate developer, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person.
I know, it's amazing.
But when I looked at that beauty, I said, that's the way it was meant to be. But, it's, I do feel it's much better for Canada.
Such an idiot.
But we're not going to be discussing
Just
that
watching the
unless
Prime
somebody wants to
Minister's face
discuss it.
throughout is
I
my
think
favorite.
that, there are tremendous benefits to the Canadian citizens, tremendously lower taxes, free military, which honestly we give you essentially anyway because we're protecting Canada if you ever had a problem.
Oh my God.
But I think it's it would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. We have done that in the past. And part of that, as the president just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership. And I'll say this as well, that the president has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it.
And they have.
He answered that brilliantly.
Yes.
Well,
and also, it's such a backhanded compliment, the thing about NATO, too.
Of course
so
it
good.
was.
So
but
good.
Trump is too stupid because he's run by ego.
Yeah.
He's too stupid to know that Carney just completely eviscerated him to anyone that has a brain. He really made him look stupid there. And, Carney did go to Oxford and, knows how to read, unlike Trump.
Well, I'll just add this because this always drives me crazy about the NATO thing. And I have to thank you because you're here representing Canada, but really we have a lot of Canadians who watch the show all the time. So all of you from Canada, the only time NATO ever invoked Article 5, the Mutual Defense Pact, was after 9/11.
Yeah, to help us.
These towers didn't fly into a tower in Toronto. They flew into two towers here in New York and into our Pentagon. And Canada went and fought and died for the United States because we invoked Article 5, and a lot of Canadians died. So I think it's not just about D-Day, which is, of course, in and of itself, just a huge undertaking. It's about recent history that we all lived through. And the Canadians were there with us, shoulder to shoulder, and died. And they weren't building little, unlike some of our other allies, they were on the front lines. I mean, they were literally bleeding and dying for this country.
Mm-hmm.
And so to hear Trump denigrate Canada's involvement in NATO is just nails on the chalkboard for me. The other thing is, does he think that border that was drawn, does he think you can see that border? Like when you go to, does he think
I know, it's just a line. You just drive up to it.
Yeah.
Somebody went with the tape measure and a ruler and really put down a physical
So
line.
embarrassing. It's so embarrassing.
I mean, what do you think about that, Charlie, when you see that? Do you even think there's any point in negotiating with somebody this crazy?
Well, I mean, it was J.D. Vance who said he was tired of Canada's sob stories about our military. Well, might be a sob story to you, JD, but we lost a lot of people in Kandahar. A lot of our people came home with no legs and with broken lives. And what the hell were we there for? We went because you asked us to go, JD. And a lot of those young people came from my region, and there's a lot of anger about that.
Yeah.
That guy's scum
Yeah.
to Canadians. Like, there's no other way to
Americans
put that.
too.
So, so there's that. And this idea of an artificial border, borders aren't artificial. They're negotiated. This is the international rule of law. And so what he's saying is that he doesn't believe that the international rule of law means anything. This is what a dictator believes. This is what Hitler believed when he moved arbitrarily into Poland. This is what Putin believes. And I'm going to be polite as a Canadian with our prime minister just having gone to Washington. But I will disagree with the prime minister when he said that not all buildings are for sale. I think the White House is for sale.
100%.
I think it's been sold to Putin. I think it's been sold to Musk. I think it's been sold to the oligarchs. And we're seeing this predator sitting in there. And did you guys have all that gold there before? I mean,
No.
He talks
like,
right.
where's
He
the
talks
Pope's hat,
about
right?
that.
No.
Yeah, there.
Yeah.
He said, he was like, now if you haven't noticed the beautiful Oval
Yeah.
Office, and he's like 24 karat gold, and he talked about it on Meet the Press on Sunday too. He's so proud of it. And I'm like, yeah, it's looking more and more like Saddam's palace every single day, which
Well,
is
he's got all the Baghdad bobs,
which
of
is
the
his
world
vibe.
for him. He
It
might as well get
actually-
the palace.
Exactly.
You guys, because I've been to the Kremlin, it looks like the Kremlin. And then if you saw Vladimir Putin did a tour of his private apartments in the Kremlin, I think it was yesterday or the day before, identical to the point
Stop.
where I'm like, was Trump there one day and said, "This is give me the Putin"? Like,
Probably.
probably.
Yeah, he said,
Hold on.
give me the Putin with a splash of Saddam and
Yeah.
Gaddafi.
And he just went to Hobby Lobby and like spray painted that shit.
Of
and
course.
glued it to the wall.
It's not real,
While
like
he's
and
still
like
in
everything
there.
else.
Yeah.
Right.
You
While
know,
he's telling American little girls to go with less dolls, right? By the way, it keeps being dolls and girls. It's not boys and Legos, it's
So
dolls.
weird. It's
and
so
girls.
weird.
Yeah.
Typical.
Charlie, what would you tell the American people right now who are looking at Canada modeling this resistance, this opposition, and thinking, I would like us to do the Canada here. Trump can do the Putin to the White House till he gets his ass kicked out, God willing. But how do we get a little Canada energy all up
A little bit of
in
the elbows
a
up.
little bit of the elbows up? Yes, please.
Well, again, it's really starting, I think, at the local level. You cannot normalize this. You cannot be complicit. You cannot go along. When it happens in your community, you need to speak up. You have to start demonstrating. The hands-off protests are really inspiring. But I've been talking to so many people that tell me just amazing stories. This woman who said she was so sick to her stomach and doom scrolling. Do not doom scroll. Whatever you do, stop doom scrolling. Don't wake up in the morning and grab your phone
Guilty.
and say, you got to get away
Michelle's
from that.
talking to you.
I know.
And this woman said she was so overwhelmed, she went and knocked on her neighbors' doors, and she didn't know her neighbors. She's living in an urban neighborhood, and she didn't know her neighbors. And they said, yeah, we're scared too. And so they formed this neighborhood group, and they held their first protest. I talked to, mothers who've never protested anything, who did the Tesla takedowns, and
Amazing.
they thought people were going to come out and shout at them, and people were honking and getting out of their cars and joining them, because if nobody in your community is doing anything, it's because they're waiting for you. And once you do it, you suddenly get a lot more empowered. I think that it's going to be from the grassroots. It's going to have to work up, because our political leaders are failing us. We keep watching the Democrats and thinking, aren't you guys going to do something? And then it's like, nah, they're going to have to wait till we do
Strongly
something.
worded letters.
Strongly worded letters. I
Every
know.
day.
But that's why that's
show.
exactly that's exactly why we do what we do. That's why the importance of independent media outlets like ours
Absolutely,
and others are so critical in this moment. And I think with what Joe asked you and the words you just said about the grassroots movement, I want to end our conversation with you with a quote from someone who I know was a huge influence in your political life, Jack Layton. Yes. He said, to all Canadians, Canada is a great country and one of the hopes of the world. We can be a better one, a country of greater equality, justice, and opportunity. I want to share with you my belief in your power to change this country and this world. You wrote that in your Substack, and you ended it with, you said that his belief in our power his belief in our power to make change was one of the greatest political lessons that you learned. You want to end a little bit on the influence of Jack and how that's relevant to right now?
Well, I mean, I didn't own a suit. Jack Layton talked me into running for office. I mean, I knew him from when I was playing punk rock bars, and Jack was trying to get me to join a party. And I'm like, man, hey, I don't do political parties. And then he ran into me when I was running a blockade at a dump site to stop our northern region, indigenous blue collar region, from being turned into North America's biggest dump site. And Jack said, we need people like you. And I said, Jack, I don't do politics. And he was the leader of the New Democratic Party at the time. And he said, it's possible to do politics with integrity, and we need people who are willing to step up. And I stepped up, and I've never stopped stepping up. And what I love about that was Jack was dying as he sent that message out. He was almost prime minister. He was the greatest prime minister we never had. But it was the line that he said, it was his belief in our power. You know, it's not like Trump and the me, and the I. He believed in us, and I believe in us. And if I can do anything in this time is to say, we the people, that's you guys, and we, the North, that's Canada, can do this. But we're only going to do this if we start standing up and saying, no, tyranny is wrong. These incel, creepy MAGA dudes, they got to go. And we got to take our democracy, our legal system. Like you guys got a bigger fight on your hands right now than.
Oh, yeah.
But we're right there on the front line, so we got to do it, and there's no stopping. This is not an option of opting out. So it's I got a belief in that we can do this. So that's Jack taught me we can do this.
Well, thank you, and thank you so much for joining us. I know the Migrants are playing the Panthers tonight. This American will be rooting for Toronto, because I'd rather root for the Canadians than Donald Trump's home state.
Absolutely.
And also,
hockey in Florida.
And also my
hockey from the get-go.
My hockey obsessed husband says there's a good Kachuk and a bad Kachuk, and the bad Kachuk plays for the Panthers. So I guess we can have a whole separate discussion about who the good Kachuk and the bad Kachuk is. I had to hear.
Is it Canuck? Wait a minute, isn't it a Canuck?
No. There's a guy. There's the two hockey.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, apparently, there's a good Kachuk and a bad Kachuk. Charlie can clarify this. I hear about this from my husband all day long. I don't know what he's talking about, but nevertheless, the bad Kachuk is playing for the Panthers, so we can't root for him anyway.
No, we're not.
I should have worn my Canada hat today. I recently flew through Montreal. I've actually never really been to Canada other than Niagara Falls, and that was recent. And I flew through Montreal on my way to Morocco for my husband's 50th birthday, and literally bought this very nice Canada hat so that I could represent my support for our Canadian brethren. And I just felt this need to hug every Canadian I saw and be like, I'm so sorry. Please don't blame us. We didn't vote for the bastards. So,
yeah.
Well, if you do come to Canada, we're inviting everyone. We're not going there, but if you come, just say you didn't vote for Trump. If you say you didn't vote for Trump, the suspicious eye view that you'll get will become very warm very quickly. If you don't say that, people will be, what are you doing here? So just say that, you'll be super welcome.
We might be
be careful. We might not leave.
They might not let us back in. They may not let us back in if our DHS guys hear us say that, for God's sakes. Whoever would have
Charlie, who should play Carney on SNL? Because my vote is for my friend Dave Foley, who's also a Leafs fan. Go Leafs. Who do you think should play him? What famous Canadian? Martin Short, maybe? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely in the Mike Myers school right now, since Mike Myers elbows up.
Elon.
He inspired the nation. His Elon thing, but elbows up. Mike inspired the nation, and we actually, Canada's a huge place, but we lived at one point just down the street from each other. That's
maybe Ryan Reynolds could play him. He's tall and good looking like Mark Carney.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be bad. Get him to play.
That.
I'm a big fan. Anyway, Charlie, Angus, thank you so much. What a pleasure.
Yes.
I know our Canadian viewers are thrilled to see you and have you on. And I don't think this will be the last of our conversation.
Have me on again. We can talk
please
about
come
anything.
back.
Anytime.
It'd be fun. Yeah.
You're our
Fantastic.
Canadian friend.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
What a great
That's
guy.
awesome.
I know.
Awesome.
I love it.
There's just something I always want to mention. I didn't want to, take up time in our conversation with him mentioning it again, but for our American viewers who may not know this, on September 11th, when planes were stranded coming in from wherever, there's a small city called Gander in Newfoundland with 10,000 people. And they took in 6,800 people who were stranded into their homes, fed them, took care of them. It is a remarkable story of humanity that is always being displayed by the Canadian people.
Yes.
And there's actually a musical about this. It's called Come From Away. It's a beautiful story. I suggest if you don't know about it, please go read about it.
Didn't it win a couple Tonys?
It did.
Come
Yeah,
From Away?
yeah.
Yeah.
I have
missed
a
it when
couple
it came
friends
on
who
the
were in
tour
it.
here. I really wanted to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
in Nova Scotia too, right? Like wasn't that where a lot of the planes?
Newfoundland. Yeah.
Yeah, it's north.
No, I
Yeah.
mean like where a lot of the planes that were turned around that had to come back, that they landed there up. It was somewhere. Maybe it wasn't Nova Scotia, Halifax, somewhere up there
Yeah.
where they had a lot of people. Because I know one of my family friends, they were like they like family to me in our church, and unfortunately, I've lost a bunch of them to MAGA as well. But at the time, the mom and daughter were on their way to LA because the daughter was going to school out in LA. It was September. She was heading on out, and they were diverted. They left out of Newark, and it very easily could have been their flight that was one of the ones going. But they got diverted up there, and they were stuck up there for like a week, 5 days, a week, or something like that. But it was in Canada. I forget where exactly.
I only know the story about Newfoundland, because I think it was so many people. It was like almost 7,000 people.
Yeah,
which is
no,
in a place of 10,000 population is like, that's crazy. But it just goes to show, like, the Canadian people have so much pride in themselves, but also I think of everyone, and they're just nice people. And and it's also just funny that Donald Trump was saying the thing about medical, the good medical or whatever. And I'm like, okay, you do realize that they have socialized healthcare,
right?
Like they
just
they go to the doctor and they don't get a $1,000 bill for like a Band-Aid. You know what I'm saying? Like
it's I mean, he's so ignorant. It's just so ignorant. And
dumbass.
I think something that Charlie said Charlie had a lot of really good things to say. And of course he's cool. He's a girl dad.
Of course.
But he by him saying that, Donald Trump being a predator and a felon, and that's why he doesn't take no for an answer. I thought was very, very insightful.
Grab him by the
in my brain had made the connection of him trying to move on Canada like a bitch, you know what I mean? But I hadn't really followed that thread through. What Charlie mentioned today. And I just want to just stick just sort of not sidebar, but that conversation was something I needed very much for myself to feel hopeful and inspired, but also not alone. Like it's weird. It can feel so isolating being an American right now, which is not at all how I'm accustomed to feeling as an American, which is, whatever it is, that's, one of the things about me being American. But now I feel, even though we talk all the time, even though we have all these communities, I still feel very isolated from the rest of the world. And I'm always like, but who's coming to save us? And that's a silly thing to think, but I feel very vulnerable. And talking to somebody from Canada who's like modeling the opposite of what has happened here, but also saying like, we see you, we still have your back. Canada is still, I joke, they are still the country that'll hold your hair when you're puking after a long night of drinking. Like that's still Canada. But it made me feel so many of the opposite emotions as I so often have to fight against, because I feel seen and I feel supported as an American citizen, but I also feel inspired and hopeful, which is inject that shit into my veins, please.
Yeah. You know why? Well, you want to know why? Because Charlie comes from this political ideology in the New Democratic Party led by Jack Layton that has a motto, and that he uses, which I was going to choose between which one I was going to read, but I felt like the way we were ending, it was better for his farewell comments. But this is like a famous thing, and the Canadians on here will recognize it. He said, "Love is better than anger. Hope is better than fear. Optimism is better than despair. Let us be loving, hopeful, and optimistic, and we'll change the world."
Yeah,
that's their mantra.
Yeah. It's funny too how he mentioned that, obviously we all know that the election turned around in just a few months, and I don't think anyone could have imagined really that it would have had this kind of a turnaround, because globally the trend was anti-establishment. It was like whatever the new thing was. And the funny thing is, in the beginning of the conversation that Trump had with Mark Carney in the Oval Office, he was like taking credit for all the wins. And like, because even though it meant bad for him, he still was like, yeah, I mean, it was about me though. And it was all about him. And then he goes on and on and on about Canada and you know, my family and my mother's family in particular is from there. And then and like, it just, whatever he could make about himself, he did. And it was just, it's always,
it's what malignant narcissism do.
Right. No, it's like, I know we've been at this for a while, but it's always just sort of remarkable to watch in real time. You're like, wow, he's really doing this.
Well, so
he's really going in there.
Let's because this brings me, because we're talking about the quality of the country that we've become, and the fact that, to be clear, most Americans did not vote for Donald Trump. I understand the popular vote, but the vast majority of us did not vote for Donald Trump.
And for those who are saying, but yeah, he got the popular vote, Julie is including in that the people who didn't vote at all.
Right.
7 out of 10 voting age people in the United States did not vote for Donald Trump. Now that includes people who didn't vote, right, to your point. But it's like, yes, absolutely.
They're still physically here, so they still physically count, right? Like, so yes. Yeah.
But yet, and by the way, if you didn't vote, I don't want to hear your complaints now.
Exactly.
Go F yourself. But what has this man done? And this brings me to my over it. What has this man done to this country in just a few scant months? I mean, we're 3 months now. What has he done to us? Last night, and some of us were, actually, I think you guys were up, right? So I was doing CNN last night. I got home. It was like 11:30 at night, and I was a little wound up, so I couldn't go to sleep. And I'm looking at the New York Times, and the story breaks. And I think Joe and Michelle, you guys at least were up. So I'm texting you.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Yeah, good for you.
Well, I mean, I had an eventful evening as well. You guys don't know. Michelle does. But anyway, go ahead.
I want to hear about that. No, usually my bedtime is 9:30, so I would not be up. But this time I was up
too. But yeah.
And what came across the New York Times breaking news, by the way, which was no longer the top story on their site this morning, because apparently it's all about the conclave, which we know nothing about. Why are we talking about the conclave? We know nothing about it. Give me the white smoke, and then we could talk about the new pope.
Exactly.
But what is happening?
And they're not reporting on the real story of the conclave. But anyways, yes, keep going.
But what is actually happening is everybody is in Rome, including all, Aaron Burnett's in Rome, and David Muir's in Rome, and all of these people are in Rome, as though they have any insight as to what's going on in the conclave. Where they should be is on the tarmac at American military bases, because I'm not even sure it could have happened by now, but the plan was today to send a military jet full of migrants to Libya.
Outrageous.
Libya. And I want to be very clear. I wrote a Substack on it today. I will actually drop it in the chat, because I think, not because I wrote it, that I think it's important to read, but we're not going to have time to go into what goes on in those Libyan camps. They keep talking about and calling them detention centers. They are not detention centers. They are, stop whitewashing this, concentration camps. They are concentration camps.
Yep.
What goes on in them is exactly what happened at Dachau in 1933, when they started rounding up the communists and the trade unionists, and actually in some ways worse, because this includes women and children who are getting raped and killed. And sometimes the guards walk into an overcrowded cell and just start spraying it with automatic weapons. Doctors Without Borders, which goes into every horrible, they're in Gaza. Like, these guys go into every horrible war zone, had to pull out of Libya because it was too dangerous in these detention centers / concentration camps. I wish the mainstream media would fucking stop. Sorry, Dad, fucking stop calling them detention centers. They are exactly, if you have been, like, I'm not talking about concentration. I'm not talking about death camps. I'm not saying they're like Dachau, like Auschwitz. I'm talking about the concentration camps where people were sent because they were undesirables. And
also, for people who forget this, which I was just thinking about, didn't Donald Trump offer Gaddafi a place to stay when he came over, remember, years ago, and for UNGA, for the UN General Assembly?
Oh, yes.
And he was like completely ostracized, and no one, like, they're like, you're not welcome here. And didn't Donald Trump say, no, you can stay here in one of his properties, and he set up one of those tents or some shit? Didn't that happen?
No, he set up tents. But he didn't take Trump up on it. He set up tents. I remember this so well, at Englewood, New Jersey, next door to Tara's hometown of Paramus. He set up a tent where the consul general of Libya was living at the time in Englewood, New Jersey, and Shmuley Botek, who is we could do a whole separate show on that one, started like having all of these protests because he couldn't believe it that they were having. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Right, but Trump did offer.
Trump did offer.
Okay, but he didn't take it up.
Right, but what I want,
I knew there was some connection there. So like the fact that Trump would offer his property to fucking Gaddafi is like one of the butchers of the world. Is insane. So he doesn't care. He doesn't care.
And not to mention, like, the Libyan government has been held responsible for the Pan Am 103 bombing over Lockerbie, Scotland, which killed 270 people, including 190 Americans, 35 of which were Syracuse University students, which 5 of those were in the drama department where I went to school, where all my professors, most of them were affected. We talked about it all the time. It's a huge part of I don't know, just it's a huge part of like my brain. I think about it all the time.
CNN just did an unbelievable documentary about this.
Yes.
Yes.
And there was
that was Gaddafi, and the people who are in charge now are not
yes.
Gaddafi people.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, it's like the Lockerbie situation has been, you know,
and don't forget Benghazi happened there.
I know.
What happened to all? Where's the outrage? Right? I mean, Benghazi was a very serious misstep, and we had people killed there, and it was, you know, some thought it would end Hillary Clinton's political career, and you know, there's been a lot of back and forth about that. But even like Republicans, are you okay with this too now? Like we're going to send taxpayer money now for us to house people.
And this is where the tribalism. It's just like, again, it's the Republican tribalism. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what they say, how many laws they break. If they got an R next to their name, it's fine. If there's a D, straight to jail.
By the way, if you ask them, where is this money coming from, right? Like, where's the oversight on this money? This money, as we're being told to go with less by the guy who said he was going to make things cost less. And now there's this money for these flights, which are to their death sentences, essentially, but without due process. Again, this is like a 9-layer dip of unconstitutionality. And the thing is, we have to delve into it all at once somehow, because they're expecting that because there's so many layer on top of layer on top of layer that you can't peel them all away at the same time. But Julie, like, this is an outrage. How can you make any possible sense of people who are here from South American countries being taken from where they live here and without due process put on a fucking plane, sorry Julie's dad, and sent to Libya? Like, how does this make any sense?
You guys, I just want to put this in context. And I wrote about it this morning because it's so upsetting to me. And I really mean this. This is not an exaggeration on my part. I spent an awful lot of time thinking about what it must have been like to be a regular German in 1933 Munich, right? And the reality is, when Hitler came to power, very quickly, they had the laws against Jews that they instituted. The Jews couldn't be doctors anymore. They couldn't be professors anymore. They couldn't be teachers anymore. They basically shut down their businesses, right? But that was the Jews. They shut down the trade unions. And if you're a trade unionist leader, you were sent to Dachau, to a concentration camp, which was just about 10 miles from Munich. I've been there, and it's in a nice, very nice little village, very close to town. And they were put there in full view of people who lived in that village, and people just went on with their lives, right? Because the reality is, we all have stuff to do, right? We all have stuff to, we have jobs to go to, we have kids to take care of. The Nazis gave the Germans, I forgot what it was called, but basically like free vacations and free trips and free theater tickets to you know, bread and circus, right? To make life go on, and you could focus on the bread and circus. And so I think about that all the time. And it kind of slowly, you know, then first the Jews, then the trade unionists and the communists, and then of course the Catholics, then it kept going and going and going until there was a world war, and until every regular German who survived that war, and many did not, was living under a horrific occupation. And if you were living in the eastern part of Germany, when the Soviet troops came through, you were being raped on a daily basis, whether you were 85 years old or you were 5 years old, because that's how much they wanted to punish the Germans. So my point is, it doesn't stop with just the undesirables.
That's right.
And what I want people to understand is, as we go on through our day, and as we think about the fact that these are some randos who are being put on a plane to Libya, and whatever the hell happens in Libya is not our problem. It is in Africa. It is 1 billion miles away. Understand that this is the country we are now. We are a country that is sending people to concentration camps. We are not the people who stormed the beaches on D-Day. We are the people that we fought against.
Right. We're
And
not
I'm
liberating
so
the concentration
over-
camps. We're importing them.
Yes, and
I mean,
I'm so
exporting
over-
to them.
And by the way, the reason they built the death camps, not in Germany for the most part, but the reason they built them in Poland and in Czechoslovakia in the East was not because they couldn't build them in Germany. It's because they didn't want regular Germans to really fixate on it, right? They wanted that ash I know it sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. I know the ash was falling on Polish people's houses. It wasn't falling on Germans people's houses. So I want people to understand we cannot just look at the story that the Times ran yesterday at 11:30 at night and then went back to talking about the fucking conclave. I apologize. It's not that I'm denigrating what's happening at the Vatican, but it's not as important as what's happening here. Until we have a new pope, then we could talk about it.
Amen.
Well,
to that. I mean, it matters. Michelle has is very well versed in this Opus Dei stuff, and it does matter, but it doesn't matter until the Pope is selected.
Right.
Nobody's
It's
gonna do anything
related
about it between now and then.
And there is like a huge lobby. Again, like this is, you know what? Let me lead to my over it, which is I'm stealing from my dad today. My dad texted me about a half hour before the show started, and he's like, "Do you want to know what I'm over?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "The mainstream media, they're worthless." And I was like,
Amen.
"Yeah,
Right.
you know what? I don't have an over it yet. I'm going to steal this." And he was like, "Go ahead." Because first of all, the story about the conclave is the far right, the Opus Dei authoritarian part of the Catholic Church that is trying to lobby and bribe members of the conclave to elect a far right fascist pope. Which
do we have that headline on in the Daily Beast? I don't think I put it in the chat.
Oh, there we go.
Okay,
Garrett Gore.
That's
Garrett
even better.
Gore, who wrote this book that I'm always telling people to buy and read. MAGA tries to sway Pope vote with $100 bottles of wine and $1 billion promises. Rich conservative Catholics say they could raise $1 billion for the church, quote, so long as we have the right Pope, end quote.
That's it right there. The fact that have we ever heard of this before? Have we ever heard of this underground group of like the freaking Catholic Illuminati over here trying to buy the conclave? I mean, trying to buy off who the next pope is going to be.
They always try, right? So the answer is
Yes.
yes. They have been trying to do this for years. What's interesting is how out in the open this is.
That's what I'm saying.
And the
We've
common
never heard
cause-
about it till now.
And the common cause that they have made with the manosphere here and the MAGA thing here. I don't know if you guys watched Stoney O'Sullivan on CNN yesterday did a segment on this, and I urge people to watch it about how the manosphere is now embracing Catholicism and telling these young men to convert to Catholicism. And by the way, it's not the liberation theology Catholicism of, peace, love, and whatever Jesus was preaching. It's the crazy Opus Dei version of, put down women and right-wing zealotry.
It's
and all of
super
that.
fascist. Opus Dei is responsible for human trafficking, sexual abuse. There are cells of Opus Dei all over the world. And this is it's about 100-year cult within the Catholic Church. And what is happening now? So Peter Thiel is connected to Opus Dei. A bunch of these guys are Leonard Leo, who bundles billions of dollars to pack the Supreme Court, is Opus Dei. That's how J.D. Vance has essentially become this Frankenstein creature of the far right through Opus Dei. He converted to Catholicism in 2019, and from there ran for Senate with $15 million from Peter Thiel, ran for Senate, won, and 2 years later became Vice President of the United States. This is only about 6 years after he was privately and publicly talking about Donald Trump being a fascist, saying that he could be our Hitler. I mean, the absolute craziness. And that, again, that's where like the mainstream media is failing the American people. The mainstream media is failing the people of the world, quite frankly, and that they are not reporting the stories. They were reporting like this surface level things that are happening.
Intrigue. It's the palace intrigue, like ooh part of it. If Aaron and Anderson were over there talking about this shit, then maybe we would say, okay, good. but
Right,
they're
but
not.
they're not, and like they're smart enough people to know, and I get that there's corporate overlords and blah 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 blah, but like who cares? I'm sorry, but like here's where the brave people have to come into play, and they have to say screw you, and at least risk their jobs and risk their comforts to do the right thing and to actually do their jobs. And when it comes, like it's Opus Dei, yes, is one piece of it. The Libya story from last night is another piece of it. What Donald Trump is doing to our national I mean, like the list goes on. Like they're not reporting anything, and that's
the meme coin, the freaking corruption, blatant corruption, of the freaking
like,
meme
oh
sales.
my god,
Where's
right?
that
The crypto stuff, man. Like that's only been a blip. And when Charlie Angus said it today about the White House not being for sale, in that, you know, contradicting what Carney said, I think Carney was saying that in saying it, but also knowing that the White House is in fact for sale. He was reminding the American people and the world that it shouldn't be for sale. Yet it is, with this fucking guy there. And the fact that the meme coin and the enrichment that Donald Trump is experiencing again now, this time, much more blatant and out in the open, with the Saudis and the Qataris and whoever the hell else wants to buy into.
Yeah, his sons are over there making deals,
making all these money.
Can I read some stats about the meme coin thing? Because
with Witkoff's son, by the way.
Right, that's right. Steve Witkoff, the guy that's negotiating with Putin, his son is the head of this.
There is a company. This is very interesting. There's a company called Freight Technologies Inc. It is publicly traded, but it's a penny stock, or was a penny stock company, right? So this is from the Huffington Post. I'm actually quoting. An international trucking logistics firm is buying as much as $20 million worth of President Trump's crypto coins to influence the administration's trade policy. The precise sort of corruption that experts warned Trump was encouraging when he unveiled his venture. Freight Technologies Inc. CEO Javier Selgas said in a Wednesday news release that buying Trump coin would be, quote, an effective way to advocate for fair, balanced, and free trade between Mexico and the U.S. Okay. The release was attached to a filing that same day with the Securities and Exchange Commission explaining why Freight Technologies was issuing bonds. The company will use the net proceeds from the offering to purchase Trump coins, the company told SEC. So after Freight Technologies announced its intention to acquire these Trump meme coins, its penny stock more than doubled, which means that investors clearly are responding to the obvious. Companies that are enriching Trump personally should expect better treatment than those that do not. And just so you know, Trump's foray into crypto now represents nearly 40% of his net worth. In addition to the Trump and Melania meme coins, they also own a majority stake in World Liberty Financial, which is a crypto exchange that launched a few weeks before the November election.
That's the Witkoff thing, right?
The one Witkoff, right? That's where Eric, Uday, and Kusei are hanging out. With
exactly. And now the Trump family entity holds 22.5 billion of the World Liberty Financial tokens, and an Abu Dhabi-backed firm will invest billions in World Liberty Financial. An Emirati firm will purchase $2 billion in a product offering from World Liberty Financial. Let me just say this. Do you know what I think this whole tariff thing is about? I think this whole tariff thing is about, in the 90 days that he gave them to come to the table, it's not to come to the table to negotiate a deal. That's why there's been no deals announced. That's why nobody's really negotiating deals. It's to come to the table and buy some meme coins from Trump. Because nobody will ever know. All of this is secret.
Yep.
And if
it's not regulated at all,
and it's secret, and he just got rid of the DOJ, not that this DOJ would ever investigate him, but he got rid of the DOJ department that actually oversaw investigation into crypto crime.
Yes, he did. That's why Elon Musk went in there cleaning house and all these regulatory agencies that would get in the way.
And who's the guy in charge of the special White House advisor now on crypto? David Sachs, part of the PayPal. Remember that name. There's going to be much more coming out about David Sachs.
Isn't he South African also?
Yes.
Yeah, he's part of that South African PayPal mafia with Peter Thiel, Musk.
Again, if you go to his Twitter feed, David Sachs, it is all Russian propaganda. It is like crazy. I mean, and that's the other thing. Like Starlink is inside the White House now, guys, which is Elon Musk's internet thing, which also T-Mobile is like, it's just
direct pipeline to Putin.
direct pipelines. Like, this shit is crazy. And this is why I'm saying, like, no one is reporting on the real stories here. And this is why independent media, unfortunately, fortunately, in this time is going to be the future, because cable news and the old model is dying. And with it is dying the truth. But you know what? The truth's going to happen here. It's going to happen with the four of us. It's going to happen with Jim Acosta. The folks over at the Bulwark are killing it. Every time I open my TV and I've got my Apple TV and YouTube up, I am watching Bulwark almost all day long. They are doing an incredible job. David Pakman is another one I enjoy.
And the thing about the Bulwark, that just to give them props again, is that they actually have real journalists that are working with them. It's not just all commentary. You know, they have legit investigative journalists and reporters that have integrity for the journalism space, that have a little more freedom. You know, they don't have corporate overlords the way some of the other ones do. But I think that's an important distinction that the Bulwark has. I mean,
and they have principles. They have principles and they stand by them, and like they don't back down from them, no matter the pressure. And I do want to say the independent actual like news sources that are really, really, really doing a great job here, especially on the tech stuff, is wired.com. Give them a couple bucks. I think I spent like $50 for like a year or something or whatever. Like, you don't have to, but if you can, there are the people to give it to, as well as ProPublica. There is no corporate overlords over there. They're doing all the really deep dive investigative works. If you don't know, they are the ones who broke open the Justice Thomas scandal with all of his, you know, gifts and whatever from Harlan Crow. And the Leonard Leo stuff, so much. They do so much. Yeah,
and also the Atlantic, one of the legacy
woman run publication.
They have not obeyed it.
I don't know how you say his name, but Judd Legum or Legum, I think.
Judd Legum.
Because he's like a former Oppo guy, right? So he's really like a very
popular
good researcher.
His popular. It's called Popular Info. He does great work too. So JoJo, what is your over it? Did you do your over it?
I didn't do mine. I'll just do mine. It's sort of tangential to, you know, the White House being turned into Saddam's palace. And Air Force One, by the way, also is going to look like a flying Saddam's palace. I don't know if y'all have seen that, but
my former Qatari plane, and they're very opulent there. I've been there.
Oh God! So we're being told now, right, that maybe your cute little daughter and their obsession with little girls is starting to fucking freak me the fuck out. By the way,
I'm over that.
Raping 12-year-olds friends and watching them rape each other. My over it is them telling us to live with less, while literally these oligarchs are dripping in gold plated whatever. The small in the pants parade that motherfucking narcissist. Sorry, Julie's dad. This one really gets me. That guy is planning they are planning the parade he didn't get the last time around, because he went to France and he saw that Macron had, and he was like, I want that. But it's not about our troops. It's not about celebrating our military or their anniversary. It is about him being small in the pants and it being his birthday. And he wants to flex, so he's going to spend $90+ million on all the paratroopers and the planes and the tanks and the submarines, as he said, destroying the infrastructure of Washington, D.C., by the way, because these streets were not designed to do this, so that on his birthday, we can celebrate his ass. This is a guy who has now, since being president again, fired more veterans than any president in the history of our country. And gutted the VA, and he's not done gutting the VA, because this is personal for him. His vendetta against the military is very personal for him. I can unpack that all day long. I'll just say this. He disparaged a POW. He demeaned and insulted a Gold Star family. He called the fallen heroes of war suckers and losers. He said that a military widow whose husband died, he told her husband knew what he had signed up for. This is a 5-time draft deferred, bone spurs fucking lying son of a goddamn bitch. And he is telling us we can't fund children's cancer research. We can't fund keeping our motherfucking milk safe, so that he can have a small in the pants parade celebrating our military that he wants to piss on all day long. And you know what? I am over them co-opting his support, their support for our troops, when that is straight up bullshit. And I think every elected official should be out there tying the empty ships coming into the ports to the fucking parade that he's about to spend our money on, and this bullshit Alcatraz shiny object that would cost $1 bazillion too. and calling it out for what it is, which is the goddamn narcissist celebration of himself at our expense and our troops as props. I'm over that. And I'm sorry.
Here.
I'm very fucking mad.
Amen, sister.
Here, Jojo. Yes. Yes, yes, and yes. No notes. No notes. Clip that, Emily, and post it.
Yeah.
No notes, because we all feel just as passionately as you do about that shit. And Michelle and I are working on some things with some very, very honorable veterans who are just as upset as you are about that. And stay tuned. We're working on some things to counter that June 14th bullshit. So, so I guess that kind of leads into my over it, because it's similar in that the absurdity of the response to what's going on here with all of this, everything that we've just talked about today, and the seriousness in which we need to take it all. Why is the mainstream media giving oxygen to the idea that Stephen A. fucking Smith is a viable Democratic candidate in 2028? Are we kidding? Listen, I am thrilled that Stephen A. Smith is a Knicks fan. I'm thrilled that I, as a Knicks fan, have seen the Knicks in the finals. I mean, almost in the NBA finals, kicking ass in the playoffs. There's a game tonight. They're playing Boston. They've already beat them at home. This is thrilling. Stephen A. Smith is a big New York Knicks fan. I became aware of Stephen A. Smith 20 years ago because he's a fucking sports announcer, commentator, and would talk about the Knicks and the Giants. He is not qualified to be a Democratic candidate for dog catcher, never mind the president of the United States. And he's out here getting platformed and getting oxygen. He was on CNN recently with Jake Tapper, and I think it was on State of the Union on the Sunday morning show, talking about potential Democratic candidate in 2028. Stephen A. Smith joins us. What?
No,
what are we
absolutely
doing?
not.
We're
Absolutely
already
not.
living through the nightmare of a reality show, know nothing, disqualified,
Misogynist.
president and misogynist, or felon, all the things. And now we're actually like, they think that the Democrats, the thing to do is to go that way. No, this is bullshit.
Listen.
It's more nefarious than that, Tara. You know why they're having him on? Because he brings ratings they don't have, right? So they're hoping that his ESPN fan base is going to come over and watch their shows.
Which is what the networks did with Trump, which is just like insane how we got here.
I was at Fox when Trump was on every single week. Gretchen Carlson could read you chapter and verse on it because it was on her show, Fox and Friends.
Yeah, I remember. I used to watch it then.
And he would call in every week for where the hell he'd never go on camera because God knows what he was, wearing. And he was sitting there spewing about bullshit like birtherism. And Fox loved it because he was so big in The Apprentice and he was bringing the Apprentice audience over to them.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, by virtue of that, Donald Trump decided he could be president. And by virtue of that, lo and behold, we're now shipping people off to Libya to concentration camps.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm not suggesting that Stephen A. Smith is going to do that.
Never happening.
Hopefully. I'm suggesting that shame on CNN for platforming him, because they're not platforming him because they really give a rat's ass about what he has to say about anything. Right. They're platforming him because they want him to bring that sweet, sweet ESPN audience over to them.
Same thing that News Nation did. News Nation did this town hall thing where Trump was on the phone, wouldn't even bother again to be on camera. And who was there asking questions? Chris Cuomo, disgraced. Bill O'Reilly, disgraced.
Gross.
And then Stephen A. Smith. The
wasn't
rambunctious
Carville there
black
too?
dude. Who? No, I don't think so.
Am I making that up? Okay.
No,
I thought I saw a picture with him sitting with them.
I don't think Carville was there. No, there's no way he would have shared the stage with Trump. Trump's not going to share anything with anybody. But this was like this might have been a different thing. But this was recently. They did this town hall with Trump, and that's where Stephen A. Smith asked him the question about Harvard. And he thought he said Harlem, and he started talking about black people voting for him.
Well, of course, because he sees Stephen A. Smith.
Of course, he sees black guy. Black guy must mean Harlem, not Harvard. I mean,
Harvard, because a black guy would never be at Harvard, according to him.
Right, of course. So, that's DEI, and they don't deserve to be there. So that's my over it. Cut this shit out. This is asinine, and I don't want to hear any more about Steve. I don't want to hear anything else from Stephen A. Smith. Stick to basketball.
Yeah, let me just say this also. News Nation, while we're at it. What the hell, News Nation? Like I won't go on News Nation.
I won't either.
No, I didn't.
sexually harassed somebody?
Yeah.
Have you been accused of some bad behavior? Well, have you been kicked to the curb from every other network? Guess what? Come over to News Nation.
Yep.
That's why I refuse. They ask me all the time. They send me things, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that.
It's very tabloid. They have like a very tabloid way
now,
of like just,
in the beginning, it wasn't supposed to be like that, and then
Right.
they made a decision to go that way. When they first started News Nation, I would go on Dan Abrams' show every once in a while. One time, I went on Leland Vitter's show. I think I was kind of duped into it. He was like, I think, guest hosting or something, because I have issues with him and his whole history. And so I was like, what? And I got ambushed, and I said, never again. And then Dan's show even started to kind of take a turn. And then once I saw Chris Cuomo go over there, and he was platforming Bill O'Reilly, and they were doing segments on UFOs. And he was like, "I'm going to bring Bill O'Reilly in to talk." I said, "I'm done. No. I'm never ever going on there
well,
again."
And I just want to say too, like, while we have the height of our audience right now, I feel similarly about Scott Jennings and CNN, because he's so controversial and so haterific that people tune in just to, I don't know, just to see where hate watch. But I want to give props to our colleague and friend here, Julie Roginski, who was on Abby Phillips' show last night with Scott Jennings. And I asked Emily to pull the clip because I would just love, I just feel like if people didn't see it, because no offense, I don't really watch CNN that much because it's blah, but it's so good. I think we have to watch it. You cleaned his clock a little bit. Yeah.
She owned him so hard, she's going to have to build a camp for him.
The fact that everybody is cutting deals with each other. We're not cutting deals with anybody.
We have one thing in the news
No.
tonight. You guys keep saying
they're having discussions with each other.
We're in the middle of talking to 16 countries, according to the Treasury Secretary.
According to the Treasury Secretary, we've been hearing from them for over a month that we're on the cusp. Any day now, any day. Lying? No, I'm saying that I've been hearing. I'm saying that every deal that we heard about is coming any day now, any day now.
How quickly would you be able to cut a trade deal?
Let me answer that question. I wouldn't get into this mess in the first place.
I think that's a very good. You wouldn't try to improve our trading relationship.
I would not get into this.
Good to know.
No, Scott. Let me tell you something. Kentucky, my friend, you guys import more than any other state in the nation. You want to represent that state in the Senate? You go tell the people of Kentucky why they have to sit there and listen to this nonsense. Their bourbon's about to be tariffed to hell. You guys are about to have no trade with Canada. You're about to lose millions upon tens of millions of dollars just in Ontario province alone with all the stuff that you're not importing there. So why don't you go tell the people of Kentucky?
We have a lot more ahead on the Canada piece of this. And you do, I can tell you, they trust the president.
Oh, okay.
They voted for the president, and they're going to let him make the best deals.
I can't wait. You tell them on Christmas.
I guess they have no choice but to trust the president that they voted for, because this is where we are as a country. Coming up next.
Bravo. And
I don't know how you do it.
You see his face? You see his face?
Oh, because she nailed him with the Kentucky thing. And you know that Scott Jennings has a thing that he does. This is what he does. He will, as soon as you nail him, he doesn't have an answer, he turns it around. Oh, so you wouldn't negotiate trade deals, Julie? Oh, I know more about Kentucky than you do. You would and you were unflappable in that.
She ate, as the kids would say.
Here's what I would say. So Scott Jennings pissed me off because if you remember a couple of weeks ago, he somehow talked his way into a 30-second stage share with Trump, where he said that he owns liberals on CNN so often that he should buy a farm in Michigan to put all of us on them. So I don't think Tara, I know you're not a liberal, obviously, but I am. And I don't think he's ever owed me. I don't think he's ever owned you. I don't think he should be talking about owning anybody.
No.
But I think
no white man in America should ever be talking about owning any other kind of human being in jest or any
Tara,
other way.
You just can't take a joke, right?
Yeah, that's right. I can't take a joke. But apparently, I'm glad that Julie's on there cleaning his clock, because I have not been invited back on that show since I spoke up about a misogynistic insult and attack on me by one of their guests in February. It's now May. I have yet to be invited.
Well,
back.
Interestingly, I was supposed to be on with Scott Jennings this morning on the morning show, and lo and behold, they canceled on me.
It's very clear that he has a lot of sway over there. The men seem to have the male guests.
What I think is fascinating is they're gonna, in the same way that Fox did with Trump, in the same way that they're trying to do with Stephen A. Smith, they're gonna talk him into a Kentucky Senate seat. Because Trump is going to endorse him, I presume, because of the fact that Trump wants a
Loyalist.
East, right, in that seat, and he's certainly proved his mettle. But you know, if he's talking about running for Senate and he's floating that idea, I would think the ethical thing for C9 to do would just be to say, okay, now you're all the candidate, like
ethical.
But they're not until he declares. They're not. He's their golden goose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And did you see Charles Blow destroy him the other night too? By the way, did you guys see that?
Listen, I've known Charles for years, and let me tell you what: when Charles Blow decides he wants to read you,
I love him.
We should have him on the show. I love Charles Blow.
Oh my God, please!
I'm a huge fan.
Charles is fabulous. Yeah, he's a great writer.
Him.
Well, Scott, as I said on Twitter, and I hope he saw it, I'm going to buy a farm in Michigan for all the Trumpers I own last night.
Yeah.
For Michael Singleton. And the other thing that was fascinating, which I don't know if you guys saw, is there was a trans woman on the show who talked about the fact, because, you know, now Trump, the Supreme Court,
of course,
has now banned transgender people from serving while it works its way through the courts. So all of these high-ranking transgender people, I guess, are supposed to go and do something else until these court cases are resolved. I mean, the talent we're going to lose.
It's
insane.
Like, my thing about that is, like, if you don't get what it is to be transgender, if you don't understand what it means, if you don't like it, okay, whatever, that's your business. Like, leave people alone. It doesn't matter what you think. This is what a free country is supposed to be, is that people are free to be, you and me. And if somebody wants to give their life in sacrifice and serve their country, who gives a shit what gender, who they love? None of it matters. And I'm so tired of this.
This is what Scott Jennings' argument was, and sure, Michael Singleton's argument was, right? Who is somebody else Tara knows. I don't know.
Yes, and unfortunately, another one I've lost to the dark side. He is very far in the sunken place.
Their attitude was, well, this is going to impact unit cohesion. And I said, this is exactly what people said about integrating the military with Harry.
Exactly.
Truman. And I said to
Michael,
I said this to Michael, who is Black. I said, oh, and their argument was Donald Trump's the commander in chief. He could do whatever he wants. I said, so if he wakes up tomorrow and says he doesn't want Black people serving in the military, they could go.
Right. Did you say that to Michael?
I did.
I missed it. And what was his response?
I'm not even going to dignify. That's ridiculous. I'm not going to.
Oh, because he knows you're fucking right. And somebody needs to remind him that he's Black every day.
So I said, I'm sorry. What is absurd about this? Tomorrow, Donald Trump can wake up and say unit cohesion. The racists who are there are plenty of white supremacists in the military who are uncomfortable sharing a unit with a Black person because they're racist. And the commander in chief can say, I'm going to segregate the military now because that's what I want.
Let me tell you what. Michael thinks that he's immune from this shit because he's cool, because he has a gun show and he likes to shoot guns and he's like a marksman or whatever the fuck. What? I've got news for you. They will lock his Black ass up just like everybody else. Not because maybe they'll put him in, I don't know, the house part of the camp, but they're not. He's still going to get locked up like everybody else because they look at him as, oh, he's my African American. Yeah. They're fucking delusional, these people.
They're already dismantling the civil rights protections for the contractors in the military. Yes. Like, why do people think that this isn't? It is happening. It's already happening.
I know. And has said that it's all DEI. So if you're a Black officer, you're not there on merit. You're a woman for that matter. You're there because of DEI. So
exactly,
he's about to fire generals, and let's figure out who he's going to fire, because dollars to donuts, the ones he's going to fire are the Black ones. I don't think there are any women. So it's going to be Black and Latino and Asian and whoever else. I don't even know who these 4 generals are, but
they've already done this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The joint women. Look at the Annapolis. Look at Annapolis. Look at Greenland. Look at all the places they removed high-ranking women. I mean,
do you remember during the not State of the Union when the camera panned over to the Joint Steves and it was Joint Chiefs, and it was like all white guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. No, but you're right. They won't come for you.
Yeah, but they won't come for you. He's not going to dignify that with a get the fuck out of here.
Everybody thinks they're special. They all think they're special.
Everybody
does sharing a cell with him in Libya pretty soon.
Yeah, because you realize Guantanamo Bay is out of fashion now. I wonder why.
Yeah.
Fancy.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. Well, on that note, we're going to fancy our asses on out of here.
Yeah.
Thank you for everybody who showed up. Thank you to Charlie Angus, who showed up today and talked Canada stuff with us. We appreciate him and his fight and him leading the resistance up there. We're with you. And make sure you check us out on the Stakes tomorrow, Michelle and I, at 7:30 for our Seneca Project show. And Saturday, we have Coffee and Conversation. Our Over It, more relaxed. We don't get quite as intense as today. It's a little more relaxed for us on Saturdays, where we combine a little bit of everything in it. So thank you to everyone who's been joining us on those Saturdays. And we will see you guys then. Anything else? Yes, I didn't say anything. No, we're good.
I think we're
All
good.
right.
I think
Bye.
we're good.
Great rest of the week. See you Saturday. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.